Hi there, it's Slawek Semeniuk. We are at Public Key Studios in Germany, and today we're hosting a very special guest from Australia, Rob Tognoni, aka the Tasmanian Devil. Hello, Rob. How are you doing?
I'm doing good,
Oh,
Slawek.
great to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here, mate. No worries.
All right, cool. First question I would like to ask you is probably the very obvious one. Everybody would ask it. How did it all start with you? I mean, what was the main trigger that a young boy from Tasmania decided to devote his life to music?
Well, my mother played piano, right? And she really wanted me to play piano, so I did for about 3 or 4 years. By the way, I can't remember anything I learned back then. Anyway, she brought a guitar home one time. I think I was about 10, maybe 11, maybe 12. I can't really remember the exact age anyway. And she brought this guitar home to learn herself, but she didn't like it, so she gave it to me, so I started to learn the guitar. And at that particular point of time, I didn't know that you could get replacement guitar strings either, believe it or not. So every time I snapped a string, it was like, well, when I get through these 6, I buy a new guitar.
You have to get a new guitar.
I was very young and very naive, and didn't know much about music whatsoever, except for my 4 years of piano, which I hated. But anyway, that's how I started.
Cool. And I believe, you know, when you sort of got a bit older, you probably got a bit more serious with music. And I believe, and that's actually a personal question, because I believe, and that's what I see also from experience, that throughout those, after the childhood years, so like still in the very early phase of a musical career, everybody sort of has to face the reality, and most of the time, a lot of musicians have to search for those normal shitty jobs just to sort of pay a living. And I believe, although we are coming from different backgrounds and different generations, that's what I believe it's an experience we can both share. Would you actually agree with me that this period of time, you know, full of frustration, full of doubts, is actually a very important one in sense of shaping a successful musician?
Well, yeah. Well, I've never really grown up for a start. You know, I'm still a kid, still like I was when I was 13 or 14. Basically, I still play in a rock band.
It's a mental thing.
Yeah, but yeah, you've got to. You know, I got married at the age of I think I was 20. I had a baby at the age of 21. So you know, it brought on a lot more responsibilities than I had before. And I had a very understandable wife who let me pursue music. So I didn't really think of any consequence at that particular time in my 20s. All I wanted to do was just play, and that was it. And I had no aspirations of record deals or anything, to be really honest. I didn't even really worry about any of that stuff. All I wanted to do was play, get in a band, have a few drinks, and enjoy, you know, playing on stage. And that's what I really wanted to do. So I guess, and I think we've spoken about this before, one of the most important things I can say now is it's definitely the journey that takes you through, and that's something that I can look back on now. Not that my career's finished, but I can look back on now and sort of think about the times that I've had. And a lot of it was just blind faith, you know, just basically just going ahead no matter what. Yeah, I had a lot of shitty jobs. I had a lot of good jobs too, and there was times when I was broke. I mean, I'm not rich now, but there was times when I was very broke, and I'm sure that you understand this.
Yeah, sure.
And that's just one thing you got to do. If you want to be a musician, you just got to get out there and do it. That's it. Don't think about anything. Just go straight ahead. Plow through it.
Yeah, and from my perspective, I have a lot of friends who actually gave up and stopped making music just exactly in that period, you know?
Well, that's it. The unsuccessful people in the game are really the ones that give up. Wow. But there's a lot of pressure, and there's probably a lot of family pressure, peer pressure, parental pressure, you know, to say, get a real job. And I was lucky in that respect that my mother, for example, never gave me any bad feelings about wanting to be a musician. My wife certainly didn't give me any bad feelings. So I was quite free to go ahead, although I had you know, as I mentioned, a child. And I think we lived in 20 different homes while my daughter was growing up. She was actually on tour with me for 6 weeks in the back of a van. We had no home, you know, blah, blah, blah.
Plus, if you're married and you have a kid, every dollar equals 33 cents, right?
Yeah, 23 cents actually, but yeah, but that's about right, yeah.
Would you consider the Outlaws as the band that actually sort of paved the first steps on your professional career for you?
A professional band, yeah. Before that, I was in a semi-professional band called Skid Row Boys, which was in Tasmania. And then I left Skid Row Boys and then joined a top 40 covers band, which I absolutely hated. But I did it. Yeah, I did it for the money.
Yeah.
I did it for the cash.
Everybody does.
6 months touring with them, and then I quit. And my wife and daughter were still in Tasmania at the time, and I quit, and I had no home, nothing. I was in the pub at the time. Anyway, they flew up. We found a place to live, and then I started the Outlaws. And the Outlaws was a fully professional band. That's all I did for money. And within 3 months of starting the Outlaws, we went on to take out the Queensland Rock Awards, Best Guitar Player, Drummer, and Best Band, which is not a bad achievement for 3 months.
No, not really.
There's one better achievement in 3 months. There's one better achievement in 3 months, and it wasn't me, it was Henrik's. He took him 90 days to become from absolutely broke and unknown to a superstar. Anyway, I just sort of throw that one in, but
and then he
nothing to do with me.
And then he also died being broke, yeah? I believe it was...
Yeah, I think he had
$20 in his pocket.
Something like that, 20, $30 in his bank account or whatever it was.
Yeah, it's a bit sad, isn't it?
Yeah, but that's rock and roll. You've got to, you have to give your life to it.
Yeah.
That's it.
I think you've always been very busy with writing your own songs, right?
Yeah.
So really active as a songwriter. So eventually you probably always wanted to get a good record deal, right? Eventually,
yeah. But when I was in my 20s, I didn't give two hoots about it. Didn't even worry about it. It wasn't even on my mind. I was happy just going out and playing, getting drunk, you know. And that was it, you know. Yeah. But then in my 30s, I started to realise that if I didn't try and get some sort of a record deal, get something going, that the career could be quite short-lived, and it can still be very short-lived even with a record deal.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's when I started to really I got a little panicky with myself. I think in my mid 30s, I think I was. Early 30s, I was starting. I think I went through a bit of a midlife crisis back then. And I tried all the record companies in Australia, and my music's not really cutting edge music. It's 70s based, blues rock. Yeah. And the thing is, that had just sort of basically finished in Australia at this particular time. And so, and it's niche. So there wasn't a real lot of venues to play and whatever have you. So that's when I started to look overseas. But and if it wasn't for a guy called Dave Holl, he's the guy that picked me up, took my demo tapes to Europe, got me started, got me a deal with his label, which was Provogue at the time, which I did 4 albums with. If it wasn't for him, I think I wouldn't be in this position, you know. So, yeah, in my early 20s and late 20s, I should say, I didn't really care too much. But in my 30s, I started to worry about it.
Yeah, because you can always realize that getting a good record deal at the time. I mean, today the times are much harder for new artists.
Yeah, I could imagine. It's
absolutely. Like we talked before, and you told me that in 70s and 80s you could play every night, you know, and get $300 in your pocket.
Unbelievable. And you'd play to 1,000 people, you know, in a big warehouse.
And these days it's not possible.
No, these days it's absolutely not possible. No, especially for a band just starting up. You know, it's very, 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 very difficult. So I really feel for young players these days.
Yeah, and although, you know, you have internet, all sorts of tools you didn't have in your days. Sure. Sorry to say that.
No.
Yeah.
Hey, what's he trying to say?
There's a couple of years difference. All right, Rob, I think enough talking for now. Let's play something, shall we?
Absolutely.
back, ladies and gentlemen, with Rob Tognoni.
Thank you, Slav.
I would like to take a moment to talk about your vast discography, which is quite incredible. I believe you have around 17 released records, and the newest one, Bira Folira, is currently in a recording phase and will be released around October.
Hopefully.
Oh, hopefully.
Or November.
Yeah.
But anyway.
How do you stay so creative, man?
Well, actually, I think it's 16 albums. You may be right. Anyway, maybe 16 or 17.
What did I say, 17?
You could have done.
On your website, I checked yesterday and said 17.
Oh, okay. I lost count anyway, so yeah.
One is called Lost Album anyway, so...
Got a few of them. Creativity. I like to keep pretty fresh with what I do. I do a lot of practicing at home. I'm always got a guitar. Even if I'm sitting watching TV, I've got a guitar next to me. And if I get an idea, I'll pick it up and bing, 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 bing. A little recorder, you know, my handy ideas like that. But I also like to not just have, like pure blues rock as such. And anybody that knows my music knows it's not pure blues rock because it's a little, it goes out of the...
it's something else, sure.
A little, well, I wouldn't say it's... incredibly original or anything like that, but it's got other influences in it that I'm not ashamed to bring in. And there's some rap influences, some soul, funk influences. There's all different metal influences, the whole lot, because that keeps me fresh and that opens up my mind to be able to go, oh, well, that's a good idea, that's a good idea, that's a good idea. And if you leave yourself to be free and not to be pigeonholed, all of a sudden you do have creativity. When you're stuck in one little pigeonhole and they say, oh no, that's not blues, or no, that's not blues rock, you can't do that.
That's where you've lost,
This is where it starts to get very stagnant and lost. And I think this is a problem with blues rock now. There's a lot of great artists out there, but a lot of them are really stuck in a can. And I don't know how many albums they can, well, I don't know how many albums they can put out doing the same thing. You know what I mean? So, and I'm not discrediting anybody in this at all. It's just...
but I share your beliefs.
Yeah, you've got to keep moving, you know? You've got to keep moving because if you don't, and like I'm 50, going on 55 this year, the thing is if I don't do this, I think the creative juices will eventually solidify. Solidify. So,
And now talking about your music, actually, I think you have a pretty unique style for yourself, both composing, performing, and composing wise. You know, so like I think apart from all those influences like AC/DC, Jimi Hendrix, Rolly Gallagher, what in your opinion would be another thing that could create this powerful blend of Rob Tog?
Well, it comes. Well, actually, I'll go back to AC/DC. You mentioned it. Actually comes from the first time I saw AC/DC live in Australia, in Tasmania, in Devonport, and they had all the big marshals, and I think there was about 100 people or 80 people at the gig.
So they still playing.
Yeah, they were still playing all the pubs and stuff like that, and they had all these. And I'd never seen all these marshals before, like in real life. I'd seen it on TV and stuff like that, and I was like this, you know, and I was up near the front, I was with a friend, and then they started, and just about blew my head off, and I couldn't believe this power. And right at that very first song, and I think it was Livewire, they started with, you know, with the bass and whatever have you, and then they come in with the guitars and the drums and everything. That just blew my head off my shoulders. Lights went bling. Yeah, it just that's it. That was it. And that's the kind. That's what
the trigger.
That's the trigger. And I said, that's the power I want to do. You know. And I even after all the years, I've never forgotten that experience and that one moment that I just went click. That's what I want to do. So I like to keep the power. You know, I mean, you can't just be 100% all the time. You've got to have some dynamics, of course. Otherwise, it gets like after 10 minutes, 3 songs, you go, I've had enough of this now. You know, so you got to keep dynamics rolling. But that was a defining moment.
Yeah, but like also you told me before, you know, that energy doesn't equal volume.
No,
that's also something that a lot of people don't understand.
No,
we know this.
Yes, we've actually
based on the recent events. Right?
Exactly, we have experienced this. Unfortunately. Power and putting yourself out there can be mistaken for volume, which is absolutely wrong. I'm not a real loud guitar player compared to
sure.
to most people. You know, I mean, if you swing the camera over there, you'll see my little Peavey over there, which is what I use on stage at a lot of gigs. Not the Marshall. That's not mine.
That's just a stand.
Just a little Peavey. So I mean, how loud can you be on something like that? Right. But I like it. I get my sound out of it. Well, basically, any good amplifier, you can get a sound out of it. If you can't get a sound out of any amplifier, well, go back and practice a little bit more. That's what I think.
Exactly.
You know?
Plus, don't you think that when you're performing, you need this energy also to keep you going?
Yeah.
You know? I have experienced this also through a lot of crappy jazz reception gigs, right? Where you really were supposed to be so soft, you know, that's... First of all, it makes no fun for you. Second of all, you know, just like, what should I do now with it, you know?
Well,
I don't even hear myself.
Well,
you know?
this music, you can't do like that.
Exactly.
Simple as that.
And if you can hear yourself very well, you are connected on the stage with a couple of other guys, there's an energy. People get it with...
It's a triangle. It's a three-way energy. It's you, the audience, and the power on stage. You've got to have those three. Okay, somebody asked me in an interview, it was a Romanian magazine the other week. He asked me, do you think Jimi Hendrix would be successful today? And I had to really think, and I think no, he wouldn't. I don't think he'd have a chance these days because he was too ahead of his time back then. He's still too ahead of his time now. But Jimmy relied a lot on volume. I mean, he's a brilliant player. He could play at any volume, but really, he really relied on this volume and this power. But he used volume. Like, I mean, he was using Marshall stats. He was allowed to do that. You put Jimi Hendrix in the clubs today, starting out,
game over.
Game over. Yeah, it doesn't work.
Which is sad, actually, you know?
Our communities are much more conservative than what they were saying. So you've got to remember that the 60s was this explosion of different music, you know, fueled by drugs, alcohol, whatever. They had a lot to do with it. And anybody that says that it doesn't is really mistaking history. It had a lot to do with this. I like my red wine, by the way. But anyway, that's another story. But Hendrix, for example, would game over. Exactly what you said.
It's also like what blew my head off is when I heard that Led Zeppelin used to play on stage without monitors, you know, and all the power of the amps was just directly from the stage, you know. There was no PA.
Yeah, well, that's what you used to. That's what it was in those days.
You know, something for a kid that was born in the 80s. You know, it's like wow.
Well, that's what I grew up playing. And the thing is, you didn't rely on your guitar amps to be mic'd up or anything. You didn't. You had a kick drum and you had two overheads. Yeah. Right. Maybe a snare mic. You know.
And then a mic for vocals, of course.
And a mic for vocals. And occasionally they'd stick a microphone on the amp. But you know, that was the days I was using quad boxes and whatever. So nobody gave two hoots about it. And the sound guy, his job was to complement what was coming off stage. And there's a lot of problems with this in small clubs where there's some sound guys that really have this desire to get over the top of you in a small club, which is absolutely ridiculous. The thing is, your sound on stage should be complemented by the PA and the sound guy, not trying to conquer over the top of you and have total control of the mix. This doesn't work, especially for this music. Rory Gallagher used to say the same thing. He says, "Don't try and get over the top of me. You know, complement what I do." And this style of music, it needs this. You know,
needs to breathe.
It's got to breathe. And it's got to breathe from stage, not by the control of somebody behind a desk. Unless it's a big venue, of course. Then it's no problem at all. You know.
Yeah, that's always the thing. You know, when people, sound guys, ask me, you know, if I need a monitor, I said, normally in clubs I don't need one. You know, when I hear myself and you guys on the stage, I'm perfectly fine. You know, what I don't like personally is when somebody says like, for instance, no amps on the stage, you have to go through PA, and then you can hear yourself in the monitor, for instance. That's what I really hate, because bass is not transparent enough on those monitor boxes, you know, and that's something I really don't like, this meaty, low mid sound kind of thing, you know. I like to have my stack on the stage, you know. Don't need a monitor. In a small club, of course, if you're playing in a venue where you have 15 meters to the drummer, you have to supplement with that. You know, but,
absolutely. Well, as you know, like what I have my monitors basically as vocals. Occasionally, I'll have a little bit of guitar and maybe a little bit of hi-hats, you know, so I can just keep up. But that's it,
right?
Because we've got our sound on stage, and the thing is, once you know, and after doing it for so many years, you do get to a stage where you just know what your sound is, what your volume level should be. Well, some clubs
That's also
can be difficult.
yeah, sure. Yeah, that's also something I learned actually by playing with you. You know, that after a couple of gigs, I sort of already knew that's the volume level, that's the balance on stage, and every time we just pick it up, 5 minutes,
That's perfect. Every time, and no problems at all. And the thing is, if it's with sound checking, for example, in an empty room, yeah, sure, you're going to sound louder than what you're going to sound on the night when there's people in the club. So that's all got to be taken into account. But Henrik's game over, Henrik's.
Yeah. Performing wise,
yes.
How do you stay so fresh after playing so many gigs every year?
Oh, thank you.
100, 150 gigs a year, man. Come on, you're not 15 anymore, right?
No, I'm not 15 anymore. I think a good positive attitude towards music. I have fun on stage.
Yeah.
I always, and you know this, that musicians I play with, they say, well, I've got to play it this way. I say, no, you play it your way, because I want you to have fun. Because if you're having fun and having a hoot, it's going to translate to the audience, and it makes me fresh, and it gives me, I'm always listening to the players I'm playing with, and I'm learning every time. Like when I'm playing with you, say for example, I learn something new every night. I always got one ear on the band and the rest to the audience. If I have good musicians, they're good musicians. So don't
trust them.
I trust them. And also you've got to remember there's like one guitar, there's one bass and one drums. Now if you screw that up, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So really, you don't have to be the best player in the world, but as long as you can do your thing, you know, and that's very important. And that's the same attitude that Henrik's and all the guys in the '60s had. They just whatever you do, do your thing, you know.
Plus, I still think that trio is the most vital constellation you can get, because you have like three elements and
so much freedom.
You know, rhythm, harmony, melody-wise. You know, it all blends in, you know?
It does, and like I said, you got total freedom.
Yeah.
It's when I played before in the past with a rhythm guitar player, and it's great. I love it. The power of two guitars is great. But the problem is it really restricts your freedom. You've really got to stick. You have to stick to a real strict formula, because otherwise, if you go bleeding off this way, the only two guys I know that can do it really good are from the Rolling Stones. You know?
Okay, Rob, I see you have a nice, new, beautiful companion on stage.
Oh, you mean
Marvelous Maverick from Menzinger.
You mean Blackie?
Yeah, could you tell me something about this?
Yes, I can. This is a Polish-made guitar, Menzinger, and it was I saw it in Adrian's the Maruszczyk showroom, and I just have to have it. It's the construction is great. It's got good solid tuners on it, a really good solid neck, and it got a very nice big thick bridge plate, which is good. So I personally think the fundamental tone of a guitar comes from the mass of the metal. This gives it the fundamental tone. It's like I said, it's well made. The pots and everything are great. Switching, everything, it works.
No coins on the headstock?
No coins on the headstock. I have another style guitar that I had with a very thin neck, which I love as well. But the problem is the neck is so thin, the neck resonates too much, and therefore gives me more of an open, airy sound, which I prefer more the fundamental sound, not the overtones. So I taped a 5 Frank on the top, and that seems to do the trick pretty good for this other guitar. But for this one, it definitely doesn't need it, because it's got good solid construction, no problem at all, string through. Yeah, I love this Maverick. It's
all right, cool.
Yeah.
Rock and roll.
Absolutely.
Any plans for the upcoming year?
I hope for next year.
Yeah.
That's 2016. Yeah. Well, that's actually my 20th anniversary year of touring in Europe. So hopefully many gigs. It's looking reasonable at this point of time. So as many gigs as I possibly can and have as much fun as I can.
Great.
And that's it. And hopefully I get another year.
Or 2.
Or 2.
Or 3.
Or 3.
All right.
Maybe. Yeah.
Should we play another one?
I would love to.
All right.
was never good for me. Wake me up by the break of day, I finish me at 3. I forget almost everything that I was supposed to be. I got up, I fell down, my head was spinning around. A dream jack boogie, dream jack boogie, dream jack boogie. Come on, dream jack boogie. Leave all the thinking, save it for a rainy day. I got no time for talking, I got nothing left to say. Honeymoon is over, clouds are setting low. Fill this up, throw it down, it ain't rain for so damn long. I got up, I fell down, my head was spinning around. Dream jack boogie, dream jack boogie, dream jack boogie. Come on baby, dream jack boogie. I hate things in the morning when I don't feel so fine. My head feels like a jackhammer pounding the skull of mine. But don't you bring this up, baby, this is not good for me. Get out of my face, let me enjoy my company. I got up, I fell down, my head was spinning around. Drink jack boogie, drink jack boogie. I got up, I fell down, my head was spinning around. Drink jack boogie, drink jack boogie, drink jack boogie. Come on baby, drink jack boogie.
Rob Tognoni, everybody! Rob, thank you so much for being here with us.
It's a pleasure, Slawek. Anytime, my friend.